gotta get it better. Gotta get it better. Gotta get
Beady
it better.
body.
Gotta get it better. Tip of the tongue, the top of the what is it? The tip of the tongue, the top of the
I don't know. But now I can feel it. I know what it's like. All right. Welcome. This is another episode of Real Talk with Casey and JoJo. What's up, Casey?
What's up, JoJo?
What's up? We are discussing our relationships, specifically ours, and we are also looking at each sign of the zodiac and how each sign has aspects that are within a relationship. So for those who haven't seen it, I'm going to give you, this is season 2. So we started episode 1 with Aries being the itch, that first spark, that newness, right? That fool in the tarot deck. We went to stubborn and toxic habits / relationships in Taurus, that fixed habitual part of us in our relationships that sometimes can affect us in bad ways, right? With our toxic behaviors. Then we moved on to two sides of the coin. We talked about Gemini and curiosity and what else in just looking at different perspectives and communicating that way. Then we looked at Cancer being the emotional strength, what kept us going, how did we continue to evolve throughout our relationship and keep us having strength throughout all the obstacles, throughout all the challenges that we were getting hit with. So that was emotional strength. And then we went on to Leo, which was loyalty, the loyalty that we still had with one another, the loyalty just within ourselves, etc. We moved on to Virgo, the little things and all the little things that kept us together, and also the little things that also pushed us apart. And then this all affects all relationships, not just ours, but ours is an example. And then of course, Libra was the scales, balancing the scales. We went from the top of the zodiac, which is the daytime, which is basically the time of where we were being shown the light of what needed to be fixed. And then we moved on to the darker side, the nightfall, the fall of consciousness, right? Where we are now looking at things that we no longer need, but at the same time kind of facing our shadows, facing our how do you call it, tipping the scales, like I've looked at all the good, I've tried to be good, we've tried to make it work, but now let's just go bad, because you know what, why not, let's just see how that goes, right? Because we tried everything else, it didn't work. So balancing the scales. 8 was the last one, which was in Scorpio, and that was deep desires. What deep desires do you have inside that you normally suppress, which then later come out and make themselves known? So we have to actually look at that, look at our deep emotions and trust that there's some type of intuitive reason why they're there. So here we are. Woo! We're now in episode 9, which is Surrender, and this is also chapter 9, Surrender, in my book that I'm writing, Summer Love. So here we are, Surrender. What we are looking at is now the aspects of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is all about freedom, travel, seeing many perspectives, learning from all different points of views, right? The deliverer of higher wisdom. And in order to do that, we must surrender the old nature, the old ways, the old self, and be able to open ourselves up to that new philosophical, the new higher self, the new integrated part of us that knows better. So I'm going to shut up now because I know I've talked for like however long.
Beautiful. It's amazing.
And so I think I need water, but go ahead. So
I have a question.
Baby talk.
So are you saying that essentially every relationship goes through this same cycle in one way or another, in the same order, or as the constellations, or explain that? Do you understand my question?
Right. So, okay, that's a good question. I knew you were going to say that at some point because I thought about this earlier. So you must have been, I don't know. So it's not necessarily that it goes in a certain order because there's so much to number one, a natal chart, right? Like
Right.
I could have so many different things going on. It's like my own fingerprint. You can have so many things going on. The planets could be in certain transits right now that affect us in certain ways.
There's a
The
lot of
moon could,
variables.
many variables. But what I did do is make it into a way that is just a simple way of learning each sign. And yes, the way that I did go in order was starting in Aries because that is the beginning of the wave. That is the beginning of everything. That is the cardinal sign
Yeah.
that starts everything, right? The beginning of a new cycle. So I did go in order in that aspect because that is the order. That's the
Right.
order
Right.
of the
Right.
sine wave, right?
Yeah. Well, and too, like it's a
So I just put it together with
yeah.
our relationship cycle, and then here it is, we're coming to the place of coming close to a winter solstice, and it's matching up perfectly with our relationship.
Yeah. Well, during your beautiful soliloquy, I was thinking, damn, like I thought I knew this stuff, but like you're just rattling it off like boom, boom, boom. And so and then I thought, okay, well, if I'm a couple, right? If I'm a young couple, or what are the benefits of knowing this information? In other words, what's the practical application of this knowledge? If I understand the horoscopes, how they relate, the weaknesses, the strengths, all those things, what's the practical application to me and my spouse, or me and my partner, or just for me as an individual person wanting to be in a long-term relationship? Like, what,
Okay.
does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I get it. So I'm picking up what you're throwing. So it's important to understand the cycles of the universe. It's important to understand that these cycles that happen on a macro scale also happen on a micro scale. Not only do they happen on Earth, they also happen within. When they happen within, they happen on the outside.
So damn true.
Therefore, if we understand the cycle of nature, if we understand each sign and how they affect us and influence us, like it says in the Bible, right? Can you tell forth the Mazzaroth? The Mazzaroth is the zodiac. Can you tell forth the Mazzaroth? Can you tell what, if nobody told you what time of the year it was, what the calendar was, anything, you've just been in a coma, and you were to wake up and you were to step outside, right? Would you know what season we were in? Would you know what time of day is in? Do you know where the sun is at any given time?
I think I can get close within a month,
But that's
within 30
because
days.
that's because we have been kind of looking at that. But for
Right.
somebody who has been stuck on the calendar cycle, right? I've been paying very close attention, especially in the summertime, of where the sun was at a certain time. And I could start telling what time it was based on just where the sun was in the sky. And then as the sun started going south
Based
in the
on looking
winter,
at it from the same
in
perspective
the same
every day.
perspective, right? So then winter time comes and now the sun is now south, right? If you look at the analema, it is way down south from where we are, right? And so now at the same time, it's no longer where it was, it's way down south, but I could see it now still in that same cycle. So do I understand now that, oh, wait, that means it's winter time and that means it's 9 o'clock in the morning? And I can tell because of the cycle of the sun. Then I can tell, okay, that means that at this time it's passing through the constellation of Gemini, which means this is a great time for thinking and communication. Let's talk. This is important to know as a couple because we are influenced on a daily by the moon, by the sun, by the planets. We're influenced in so many different ways, but we have to come to a place of understanding and acceptance because maybe there's aspects of you or shadow sides of you or of your couple, of your significant other that you're not really in agreement with or you're not liking. Do not condemn the person for having those shadow
Right.
aspects. It could be that the planet of his home, his natal chart is passing at a certain time and affecting him in a certain way. And if you understood that, you would have more of that unconditional love. It wouldn't be so conditional. It
Right.
would be more accepting because you understand this is the rule, this is the laws of nature, and they're happening within our relationship like they're happening within the universe.
Yeah, and that's why I asked the question, because we talked about this, going back and looking at it, as a young couple, and if you don't have the experience of a long-term relationship, which no one does, it's like when you become a parent, right? You don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Right.
Maybe you had some experience with younger brothers and sisters, but like if you've, like us, we're only children, never held a baby, don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But if we know what to expect, does that change things? If we know what to expect, does that
Mm.
change how we react to things? And as a young couple or a seasoned couple, I mean, just looking back and having the joy of reading and revisiting all this drama over the years, had I understood the things that we're talking about, the aspects of the constellations and all the things that you just went through, does that shift my perspective a little bit? If I had known what a twin flame was and what a twin flame journey was, would that have shifted my perspective? Of course.
But
Like
we
I
were
would have been.
learning. We were learning.
Right, but I think it just sheds light on how important it is to, obviously we're touching on this on a very high level,
Yeah.
but how important it is to kind of dig in and really take this information seriously in terms of application to your life. Because again, I mean, how much heartache could it have saved? And how much easier could things have been just from reaction and handling it compared to not knowing what you're doing, right?
And that brings me to where we were in our surrender stage, right? In this chapter of our lives, where I was pretty much looking for answers as far as what is this twin flame journey all about, right? I was really trying to understand what these stages were. And this is right about the time when I was listening to somebody else's experience and her explaining the stages and her explaining, what her relationship was like, basically what we're doing. And so here I am coming full circle, looking back at it, going, if we're each just sharing our own experience, there's someone out there that's watching, whoever it is, like we don't know who they are. But what if that person is that me that I was back
Yeah,
then
yeah,
needing
for
that
sure.
information? And so here's the thing. What I learned, what I was, let's go ahead and share some of my story, right? Um we ended up with what happened. I started looking into astrology. I started trying to try to understand why I couldn't make a decision during Mercury retrograde. Okay. And this was like a 4 times a year. And I would be like, during these 3 weeks, I can't decide, I can't make any solid decisions. So I would spend 3 weeks of reflecting, because that's really what you're supposed to do, reanalyzing, everything. But by the time Mercury retrograde was over, here I was back in square one going, oh, I don't know what to do anymore. And I'd be in this limbo of, I don't know what to do between this guy and and Keith, and I would just be almost close to making a decision. And then boom, Mercury retrograde would hit
But
again.
but don't I mean, isn't that kind of a silly way to look at it, like making a decision? Because you can't, like with things like this, with things of the heart, you can't make a decision. You can think and tell yourself you're making a decision, but are you?
Right. But society makes you think that you have to, that it's like that. So you go, oh, I have to make a decision. And you can't tell your heart to make a decision. It's a heart.
Exactly. That's my point. So it's like you telling yourself that you need to make a decision is really just forgive me, it's kind of stupid, right?
Yeah, you got to
Because
go
there's
through the
no
experience.
right, there's no way to make that decision. You'll know when you know. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times we try to know because we want to move on and we want to get out of the cycle without actually learning the lesson, without actually doing the work, without actually going through the the drama that needs to unfold so that you then can know, right?
Yeah.
I mean to call your question stupid, but
No,
I
no,
think
no,
it's a,
no.
I think
That's
it's
where I
important to
was
understand
then
that.
though. Like
Yeah, for sure.
I was there that like I needed to understand things, and at that time we were thinking about moving to Colorado. Um which is crazy because we weren't even together, and here I was in limbo. But yet I feel like, again, like part of me wanted to escape and part of me wanted to just, if we move somewhere new, then fuck a whole new house, new us. It was like new state, new us, maybe, right? Like
Yeah, if we make it more
if we
grand,
make it into a
grandiose,
whole new
it'll work.
state or a new cut, see, but then it moved into a whole new country later, you know? It
Yeah,
did. Like then I wanted to
yeah,
move to Colombia. So
yeah.
here's the paradox of it. It's like we keep wanting to move to have a new us, but like we're creating a new us now with here, like right now.
Right, as the place, time, and is irrelevant
Right.
for sure.
So we try to move to Colorado. We go there to check it out. We're like the whole family's like digging it. The kids are excited about it. They make
Such a cool place.
they make a list of like, okay, well, what needs to happen, right? In order for us to move. So they make a list, you know, we got to sell the house. We got to, at this point I was in the townhouse, you were at the house. We're separated, right? And the kids are like, well, this has to happen and this has to happen. At the end of the list, it was like, okay, you guys have to get together, don't you, in order like for us to happen. And we're like, well,
Yeah,
that's a big one. We didn't think about that, you know? And then here
you
we
know,
are, like,
yeah, and I had forgotten. I forgot that that was a sort of a pattern in terms of moving to Colorado, because I remember. I mean, it was. I remember having the conversation, and luckily, we're both smart enough to kind of go, well, what's going to change if we move to Colorado? Are you going to feel less? Is your decision going to be any easier? No, and in fact, it's going to be worse, because now you've sort of isolated yourself, you've distanced yourself from the problem.
then I'll have resentment
Right,
towards you.
right, and I think that's more of a side effect. But the ultimate decision is that you're moving away to make it easier to disconnect when you're not ready to disconnect. So forcibly disconnecting almost just reinvigorates the pull,
Do
right?
you think I was really just in pain because he had moved on and he had started a new relationship?
I don't know. I can't. I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
Is
I'd
that
have
too
to
painful
really.
to think about?
No, no, no. It's not painful. I mean, I just have to really go back and remember what you were going through, and how
He had
you were
started a
feeling.
new relationship right after I had walked away, and she had moved in with him, and this is the time where I was by myself going, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm by myself, you know, I'm going to prove it, I'm going to show myself. And then he's in another relationship, so here I am looking at my twin flame journey going, he's the runner right now and I need to surrender. I need to surrender to whatever God, the universe has in store for me. I don't know who is going to be the person that's right for me, but I need to surrender, because either he doesn't know what the hell he's doing or I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know, that's where
Right.
I
And I
was.
was in the same boat of surrendering to just letting whatever happens, happens, right? Just be supportive. Be supportive. Because again, I mean, for me, it always has been, once you make the decision, like once you
Ye-
know, like I did not want to move to Colorado to satisfy this cycle, if you will,
Right.
to then turn around and you go, yeah, I wanna move back.
And then we have to go all the way back and
Well, not
affect the
we. It won't
kids.
gonna be we.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean,
Anyway, but we didn't move. So we didn't
right.
move, but we had already sold the house.
Yeah, I mean, we had enough sense to do that. But I mean, as you were going through that, you know, yeah, you were trying to prove it all the while. I'm over here like, okay, whatever. And again, you don't forget. I mean, you had sort of set done something that put your foot in the sand to a degree, to a dude. Like if you had done that to me, like I would be
I did
like,
do that to you.
but I mean, in terms of
It-
talking about being together and then turning around the next day going, I can't do this.
oh, you mean what I did to
That
him?
was a big deal, because I
Yeah.
mean, this dude's a Virgo, I'm a Virgo. I know how that would make me feel. Like that would put up a lot of red flags, and it would make me be like, okay, so clearly he was like reacting to that and going, okay, I'm gonna go start a different relationship to get you out of my mind, which is the same thing we were doing, moving to Colorado to distance yourself to get you out of a mind. So it was like a tit for tat thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be a part of this shit. Like, as
Well,
punk.
I don't think we knew that then.
No,
Like
we
I,
didn't. But looking back on it, subconsciously, you knew.
yeah.
Subconsciously, it's occurring and it's happening. But I knew I didn't want to be a part of that in terms of moving our kids and our family and everything to turn around and have some issues, or to just have regrets, right? Like I don't want any regrets. If we're gonna get back together and we're gonna make this shit work, it's gonna have to happen with no regrets.
No regrets.
And yeah, so I mean, it's like, yeah, I bought a house, I don't know, about a mile away, and it was a
From the
small,
townhouse I was staying at.
right, it was a smaller house than we had lived in before, but it was a ranch. It was a great location. I'm like, if I have to sell it again, I can sell it pretty quickly because of the demand. Um, so, and so my thing was, I'm just going to position myself into this. If this opportunity works out and we get together, cool. If
And we
not,
came when we saw the house together for the first time, right?
yeah.
I
Our
I was
realtors,
like,
man, our
hmm.
realtors are like, so y'all are divorced, but you're buying a house to.
No, but we
Okay,
weren't divorced then.
but we're not together. You're separated, whatever.
Yeah,
But
we were
you're
separated.
buying a house.
They're like, huh? Because I'm looking around like, yeah, I like this. Yeah, I like this. And I'm like, man, it has so many things that I like, but yet we're not together. Is he doing this to like wave that cheese in front of me? You know what I mean? Like,
No,
um, but it was just kind of perfect. And it was a mile away. So it was perfect because he had our son was living with you and our daughter was living with me at the time. um it was just like walking distance from school, and it just kind of fit at the time.
yeah, it just made sense.
Yeah, so this was a whole bunch of traveling going on. We were going back and forth to Colorado, checking it out. This is about the same time that we were doing our capital trip, and we were going to hit up Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, back to Colorado. And the emotional roller coaster between that, like just that itself, it was kind of like showing our cycle. It was like a mini cycle. And I think
Mhm.
the world shows us in some way the cycles that we're going on a big scale. It shows it to us on a micro scale.
But you got to pay attention.
Yes. So,
And that's the point. I mean, that's the point of knowing this information, is that the awareness of knowing
yes.
the info causes you to be able to pay attention. You recognize the cycles, you adjust them, and you start to like attack things more intelligently in terms of, not reacting, because that's all we did for the first, 15, 12, I don't know, whatever many years of our relationship, is we just reacted. It was just constant back and forth
Yeah,
reaction.
well, we didn't know all this stuff. We're like in
No,
the
of
age of
course.
information now where people are like constantly eating up information. So this is perfect. It's valuable information.
For
That's
sure.
that's the point here.
And yeah, I mean, and you're not going to get an epiphany. I mean, you may get a small epiphany, but you're not going to, have some huge download of information and understand all this. But it's like Joanna mentioned earlier, seeing someone else talk about this inspired her to want to learn more and learn more. And, as she learned more, it translates into better communication. It translates into, oh, okay, he's being a obnoxious, picky prick. Oh, there's this going on. I'm gonna let him slide with that,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm gonna talk about that. Like the fact that, like, okay, so we go to Utah, and we're not Utah. We were in driving in Wyoming, chasing the sunset. It was beautiful, and
Best
it's like
sunset ever.
it was like the best sunset we've ever seen. It was like we kept chasing it. It was just it was the longest sunset because we were driving straight to it, right? And
Yeah, I think the speed limit out there is like 75. So we're going like 80, 85, chasing the
yeah,
sun.
and it was romantic, and it was just like, oh, this can be us again, right? And then we go to Utah, and Utah's great, and we're having a great time. We're Salt Lake City. Remember
Yeah.
what happened in Salt Lake City? I mean, in Salt Lake.
Yep.
Okay, so it was like it was a magical experience. And then we're driving
2 hours
back
later.
we're driving back to Colorado where we started, and we're passing through the windmills that are like the cycles of they're surrounding us everywhere. Just,
Everywhere.
hey, cycles.
Fields of
And
windmills.
here we are outside of the car yelling and screaming. The kids are like, oh, here we go again. It's something that they captured and remembered and stored in their back pocket or whatever, of this incident. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. What the fuck? Like, why am I still doing this? This is the same cycle that we continue to go on over and over and over. So here we are, like, over there. We're on the cycle of going back to his Christmas party. And again, we're separated. We're not together. I decide to enroll in the University of Metaphysics. I become in the doctorate program of philosophy. And I'm like, I'm going to get this whole spiritual thing down. I'm going to figure this out. So the passion that I had in becoming everything I've become and doing everything I've done all stemmed from me trying to understand life, myself, and us. Like that was my drive. And then I wanted to teach others. And I was like, I need to understand how I can do this for a living, because all I want to do is teach others based on my experience, or else what the fuck did I do all that for?
Yeah, yeah, and if you're, I was gonna say this earlier, but like it to this day, if I really look into her eyes, I still like feel intimidated. You know, like when you meet someone and they're just intense, and you have passion, love, whatever for that person, and they just that energy, you just feel it, and it's almost like you want to shy away from it, but you have to like convince yourself to stay put
Why?
and to bask in it.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I mean, it's crazy because it's still that way. Like when you were talking, looking at you, I still it's not as intense, of course, but it's still there. And I say that if you're, we've talked a lot about in the past, like how do you know, right? Like how do you know if you're in a bad relationship and it's a you issue and you're with someone just because for whatever need they satisfy, that's different than someone like us, like our situation where we truly deep down love each other. We're just so fucked up, from childhood and everything else from life that we can't figure the shit out. But we figured it out. So I say all that to say this: that if you have that feeling, if you look into your girl's eyes, your man's eyes, and you feel those butterflies or your heart beats faster, work the shit out because it's you, it's him. You're gonna go through the drama, you're gonna go through shit, but at the end of the day, it's worth it
Yeah, because you're
because
releasing the ego.
yes, I mean
And that's what's
it's as much
important.
self work as it is the other person. It's not about the other person, it's about you.
Mhm.
And then as you fix you, they'll fix them, and then you start to come
You
together on a
merge.
deeper level,
So
right?
that's where we're at. We were in surrender before we get into harmony. We're surrendering ourselves. The surrender stage is all about helping the soul release the ego and develop a regular communication with the integrated higher self God part of you, right? It's about really just having that full trust that everything is going to be okay. And this is where I was like, you know what? I don't know anything anymore. Like I was really learning about everything. And really, when you learn about everything, you start realizing you don't know shit. And I was like, you know what? I don't know shit. I don't know shit about shit. I don't know if we get a divorce, if this is going to end everything. Will this end the cycle? Will this end, you know, the us that I've been trying to like kill off, right? Or
Yeah,
will this prove to the other one that I'm moved on and that I can really, divorce myself of him and really make a decision, because I knew that he was tired of me being in limbo as well. You both were. And so I'm like, okay, if I can just really make up my mind and make a decision and just choose one or the other, then I'll know whether one or the other was right or wrong. At least I'll know. You know what I mean? A lot of times we get stuck because we can't make a decision. And we're like, I don't know what to do. So we don't do anything at all. And that's where I was. I didn't do shit for years because I was so indecisive. And finally, I'm like, I need to make a decision. So I was like, Keith, we need to get a divorce. We need to get a divorce, and I need to change my name.
okay.
And so here we were going to the courthouse and signing the papers together. And he's over there like, okay, I'm just doing this for you. I'm doing this because I just want you to know that it's only because I love you and because this is what you want. Like you asked me again right before, like we signed it, like, okay, like it's because of what you want. And it was the hardest thing ever because I wanted you to, but I had to make a decision. And it was like the easiest thing to just like, okay, let me break the cycle. We have to break the cycle. And so we got a divorce, went out to lunch afterwards, and
But you know what though?
that was that.
It's so you talk about it, and I get it. When you're in the moment, and you don't have that experience to kind of base your decisions off of, I can understand how you were feeling. But in retrospect, right? You knew that we were never ever gonna be done, and if we were, like, you can't even.
Oh, so here's the thing. If I chose you, let's break this down. If I chose you, right, I'd lose him forever. Period, pretty much. If I chose him, I can still be with him and you would still be in my life because you're the father of my children. But then it was like having like, that was still going to be weird because I knew that every time I'd see you, I'd still want to be with you. So it's like still putting me in a
in
place of
retrospect should tell you all you need to know.
So anyway, so I picked me. I picked me. It's not like I picked him.
But
I
you
picked
had,
me.
yeah, but in retrospect, again, I mean, you kind of see how silly it is, but how complicated it is.
Yeah, because that was my life. Not to mention having to tell society, you know, what was going on and just having to see their opinions and judgments on it. It's like, look, you didn't walk in my footsteps. You have no idea what I've gone through. You don't know what I'm thinking or why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it was really hard to kind of face the world at that time.
But you did all that because you had a cycle within yourself
that needed to end. Yeah.
And the only way that would happen
was detaching myself from you to see if I really what I really felt about you, really. Like, don't you know the whole thing of if you let them, like we tried this a lot, but you know, if you let them go, what is it? Let them free. What is it? I'm messing it up.
Set them free if they come back.
Yes.
Yours forever. I don't know.
Yeah. Like set them free, let them go. And I'm making up my own shit right now. But basically, if they come back to you, then I want to make it rhyme, but it's not. Then they're meant to be. So at that point, I'm like, I'm surrendering and I'm going to let you go. And whatever's meant to be.
Yeah, and I did too. I mean, I'm surrendering. I'm going to let you go. You know, again, for me, it's all about, I want you to make a decision that you're 100% confident in. And once you can make that decision, cool, we'll go from there.
Yeah. So it's important when you're going through these stages, that if you're in a place where you think that you're in the cycle of your relationship, where you feel like you're coming to an end of something, you're coming to the end of a cycle, cycles start in Aries and in really, I mean, in Pisces, but here is where you have the winter solstice, which is the crucifixion, which is the end of that cycle, so that you have that grieving aspect during winter before it starts again, during where you have that death of the old, but then you have to bring your, like, get yourself back up, right? The goat has to climb up the mountain. So it's like, it's got to bring its way back up again, have the revelations that it's going to have for this new cycle during Aquarius, you know, and then feel deeply for whatever it was that cycle was, like heal from it, really heal from that cycle. And then boom, you're ready for the new cycle. But that part of that winter coming up is very important, because if we don't heal, we're going to continue the cycle. So this is why it's important to know this. So I want you to think on where you are in this cycle, because you have all these examples, 9 of all these different aspects, and you can relate, okay, where am I in my relationship and what does that mean to me? So I hope that our experience has helped you in some way, shape, or form. And also thank you so much for watching. Do you have any closing comments?
No, I just remembered, I used to, you tell me if you remember this. I used to always ask you, you know, if you're not 100, if you don't know that you're 100 in one way or the other, like we can't do this. Right. You remember that?
Yeah.
I used to ask you that shit all the time. And when is it coming up that you actually know the answer? Which chapter is that?
Aquarius.
Which is how many more which chapter? We got 10,
11,
12. Oh, cool. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, this part has been not so fun.
Been rough.
It's been rough, but that's our story. Yeah. So part of the healing process. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.